Lads, lasses and the rest of the masses, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mono from Mono CFC and this is a deep dive for Chelsea's brand new signings. Chelsea have very recently agreed deals / personal terms for 4 key players that could play a big part in how the team operates next season. In this video I'll be analysing each of them in detail and highlight what I believe to be their strengths and their weaknesses. So let's introduce the 4 players we'll be talking about today. Axel Disasi, Robert Sanchez, Michael Olise and Lesley Ugochukwu. But really quick, before we get into the main bulk of the video, I have started an FPL mini-league for this community. If you'd like to join, just use this code on the app, or click the link that's in the description and it will automatically join you into the league. There will be a small prize for the winner at the end of the season, so if you want to be in with a chance to win that, get involved. Alright, let's start off with Disasi because I've already done some analysis on him in a past video. Disasi is a very solid centre-back coming in from Ligue 1 in France. Playing for Monaco, Benoit Badiachile's former partner has been one of the rocks at the back for the Monegasque defence and has stepped up massively with goals from the back in recent times too. Captaining the side multiple times, he can lead the team from the back and is a reliable hand, rarely getting injured, which is something that will be music to Chelsea fans' ears. Disasi is an incredibly strong, aggressive defender that likes to try and win the ball and keep his opposition attackers on their toes. Despite his size, he is actually quite pacey, regardless of what fake stats on Twitter try to make you believe. Getting to the ball first is one of the things he is best at. Part of this is due to his incredible intelligence on the pitch. His positioning and awareness of danger is something that we see from very few defenders in today's game. It reminds me a lot of how Thiago Silva plays, stopping the danger before it even becomes danger. I've shown these before, but in case you didn't watch my previous piece on him, here are his stats in comparison to all centre-backs in the top 5 leagues. You can now see why people were rating him so highly before we signed him. He's in the 96th percentile for progressive passes and carries, 93rd for take-ons, and 86th for interceptions. You may notice that very low 4th percentile for tackles and get a little scared, but there's a very good reason for this, and this is one of the reasons why you have to take stats with context and not just at face value. I spoke about this previously, but the reason he has low tackles is because he rarely puts himself in a position in which he has to make a tackle. If you watch how he plays, he's always looking to get ahead of the opposing attackers and intercept the ball, which we've shown he is very good at, rather than let them have it and take it back off of them. I said this last time, but remember the famous Maldini quote where he said something to the effect of, "If I have to make a tackle, I've already made a mistake." Axel Disasi almost bases his whole game around that concept. He also has low clearances because, as you can see, he prefers to pass the ball rather than clearing his lines, which could be slightly risky in the Premier League because of how intense the pressing is, but I feel as if he's good enough at beating that press for it to be a non-issue. He is, from what I've watched, very press resistant, which is partly why he has good take-on stats. Now let's move on to one of the more odd parts of Axel's game, his offensive stats. Usually you wouldn't really even consider these for a centre-back, but Disasi is on another level when it comes to providing goals for his side. Last season he got 6 goals and 4 assists in all competitions, 10 G/A, which is a mental amount of goal contributions for a centre-back. You'd expect those numbers from full-backs, but not centre-backs. You can see how good he is in that regard compared to other centre-backs in the top 5 leagues. Getting goals from your defenders is an incredibly overlooked and pivotal aspect of the game. Remember how many goals we scored in games we won because of defenders. Terry, Carvalho, Cahill, even the likes of Zuma and David Luiz. Being able to be a danger from set pieces and not just have to rely on your forwards is a quality that only serial winners have, and Axel would bring that goal threat from the back that we've been missing in recent times. We've got him on a very decent deal, around 40 million, and I genuinely think that he can not only succeed Thiago Silva when he leaves, but challenge for that right centre-back spot now. Next up, let's talk about Robert Sanchez. I know a lot of you out there will be having doubts about this signing, but I think it's a very good bit of business by the club. 25 million for Brighton's best ever keeper is a bargain whichever way you spin it, and in comparison to spending 80 to 100 million on someone like Maignan or Diogo Costa, this is a very smart move in the long term and will allow us to allocate more funds elsewhere. Wink wink Caicedo. He's only 25 and we've got him on a very long contract, so that fee will look even better in a few years once he reaches his prime. For the most part, I'm going to be comparing him to Kepa Arrizabalaga because I think it shows how he improves us. So firstly, let's compare their stats. I'm going to be using Kepa's stats from last season and comparing them to Sanchez's from 2021-22 because Sanchez had a very notorious falling out with De Zerbi and thus his stats from last season are an incomplete dataset and don't accurately show his quality. Also, they both show the player's performance under Graham Potter, so it's more of a fair test in my opinion. As you can see here, they are very similar. Kepa has slightly better save percentage, Sanchez has slightly better goals conceded per game, and they are basically the same for clean sheets too. But this is where Sanchez starts to look like a good move in my opinion. He was getting comparable stats to Kepa whilst playing for Brighton, who didn't have world-class defenders like Thiago Silva, Reece James, even Badiashile, who was one of the best centre-backs in the league last year. Our defence was so good last year that almost all of the saves that Kepa had to make were easy to make. It was when the shots were hard to stop that he conceded. Chelsea's defence is so good that it usually limits teams to taking long shots. Unfortunately for us, that's our biggest weakness with Kepa in goal. I've always said that I believe Kepa is a great shot stopper, but his height limits the amount of shots he is able to stop. It's part of the reason why every shot Kepa concedes looks unstoppable. His lack of height and short arms makes any shot that goes in the corners look impossible to save, because for him, it is. On the flip side, we have Sanchez, who's not going to concede that type of shot because he is huge, 6'5", pushing 6'6". Robert is a mountain of a man that can reach those shots in the top corners. Sanchez's stats will only improve with our defence. I've always believed that our defence was good in spite of Kepa and not because of him, and our defensive record will only improve with a taller goalkeeper. Sanchez is like a mixture of the two goalies that we had. Mendy was tall and good at reaching high shots, but awful with his feet, and Kepa was great with his feet but unable to save high shots. Sanchez is good with his feet and able to save high shots. His distribution is very good, able to pick out players with long passes, and likes to restart attacks very quickly, which will be a great combination with the likes of Mudryk and Nkunku and Jackson running in behind as we've seen them do in pre-season. He can do this with both feet. In fact, he's so two-footed that I've gotten conflicting reports of what footedness he actually is, because different sources say different things. The majority of them say that he's left-footed, so that's what I'm going to go with, but there are a variety of answers out there. Sanchez is also a great talker, a good leader and a commanding goalie. There shouldn't be many issues with organisation or communication in the backline because of this. His English is superb as he's lived here for about a decade, and he'll hopefully be able to fix those types of errors due to miscommunication we've seen us have last year. One of the things he is best at is his ability to claim high balls. His height and decent vertical jump provides him the tools to come out and intercept corners, free kicks and crosses, and he doesn't have to resort to those slappy punches we've all but been accustomed to with Kepa in goal. His large stature makes him able to smother opposing attackers, make himself big in 1v1s and hard to get around when through on goal. He doesn't just freeze on the line, he closes down the angle and makes himself very hard to beat. Along with this, he's quite good at saving shots with his feet, not just his hands, which is rare for a goalie with his body type. The only one I can think of that does this consistently is Thibaut Courtois, and he's one of, if not the best goalkeeper on the planet. Not everything is sunshine and rainbows though. There is one glaring issue with his game, and that's that his handling, except when claiming high balls, is very suspect. He parries shots a lot, sometimes into danger, sometimes not, but it's slightly worrying that a lot of the time shots don't stick to him. That being said, we have some excellent goalkeeping coaches with Ben Roberts and Tony Jimenez joining ex-Chelsea goalie Hilario in the coaching staff that can hopefully improve on all aspects of his game, but most importantly his handling. Overall, I reckon he'll be a decent acquisition for us, and in due time I reckon he'll be our number one. Real quick, if you're enjoying the content and want to see more, please subscribe to the channel. This helps support me and the creation of videos like this one, and we are less than 800 subscribers away from 15,000, so hit that red button and join the masses. Next up is Michael Olise. If the reports are true, Chelsea have a verbal agreement for Michael Olise for around 25 to 30 million Great British pounds, and my word, what a bargain that is. Olise is one of the best right wingers in the league right now, and is everything we thought Hakim Ziyech was going to be when we signed him. Able to play on the wing or rotate in at cam, Olise is an elite level creator. His vision, passing and great dribbling makes him a tricky man to defend against, and will be the perfect replacement for the aforementioned Moroccan. Olise got 2 goals and 11 assists in the league last year, the third highest amount of assists in the league, which is absolutely insane for a player playing for Crystal Palace. Listen to these names he's surrounded by: Kevin De Bruyne, Mohamed Salah, Bukayo Saka. He's up there with world-class players, whilst playing for a club that doesn't have world-class talents around him. He's got more assists than Bruno Fernandes, Christian Eriksen, Jack Grealish, Trent, Riyad Mahrez. It's simply astonishing what he has achieved last year, and he's got the potential to surpass these numbers with an even better team around him. Let's look at his stats, which admittedly don't look the greatest, but again this is a matter of combining the stats with the eye test. His stats are slightly skewed because he has less minutes than most wingers. For example, he's played around 400 minutes less than Bukayo Saka, 500 less than Salah, and about 500 less than Jarrod Bowen. And that's just in comparison to the Premier League. These stats are comparing him to every winger in the top 5 leagues. Not all of these minutes have been played in his favoured right wing position either. He has done multiple shifts in other positions, which is why he has 2 sets of stats here, and his stats against midfielders look immaculate by the way, as they should. It's also notable that Palace were pretty awful until Roy Hodgson took over, so a lot of his good work came late on in the season when he was getting more consistent 90 minutes of football. But regardless, we can see that he has massively overperformed his expected assists and got into the 93rd percentile for assists against all wingers in the top 5 leagues. The 81st percentile for shot creating actions is very good, and he attempts a lot of passes, a lot of which are very risky, ambitious balls, which isn't really reflected here. His pass completion stats are a little worrying, but again, take this with a pinch of salt because he's attempting a lot of high risk passes to teammates that aren't the best at collecting them. If he wasn't good at passing, he wouldn't have as many assists, that's obvious. A lot of other players pad these stats by making safe passes back and recycling possession, but Olise doesn't really do that. It's also notable that because of how Palace play, a lot of the time he does just end up in the centre of the pitch or in the half spaces, so comparing him against wingers isn't entirely accurate either. We can also see that he's very good at defending from the front. Palace like to press their opponents, and he was very good at intercepting the ball or tackling it back to start counter-attacks, which Palace were quite deadly from. He's a great crosser of the ball and is very good at dribbling with his stop and go style, and has a wonderful eye for a through pass, which will combine well with our great runners of Jackson and Kunku and Mudryk. He's also a fantastic dead ball specialist, giving us a left-footed option from set pieces that isn't a fullback for once. His delivery at times last season was almost too good, with his teammates unable to latch onto the balls because they weren't expecting them, which is another reason why his passing stats are slightly suspect. Olise was in the Chelsea academy as a youngster, and his brother, Richard Olise, is currently in our academy right now, so he's familiar with South West London and the Premier League, so won't need as much time to adjust, and we don't have those questions of, can they do it in the Premier League, like we would have for someone like Kudus or Cherki for example. Hopefully he'll feel right at home coming back and can settle in quickly and start competing with Noni Madueke for that starting spot, pushing them both to be better as a result. Finally, let's take a look at Lesley Ugochukwu. Lesley is a very promising young man and was playing as a defensive midfielder for French side Stade Rennais in Ligue 1. Standing at 6'3", he's a very imposing figure in the midfield, bringing a stature that we have been missing in this Chelsea side ever since we lost Nemanja Matic. And speaking of the Serbian, Ugochukwu has a very similar playstyle to the former Chelsea man, being excellent at winning the ball back and able to progress the team forward after doing so. Lesley is a determined ball winner with elite positioning, always seeming to be in the right place at the right time to cut out passes or dispossess a player receiving the ball. He's notably very good on the edge of his own box, being able to spring counterattacks after blocking a shot, another aspect of the defensive game he's exceptionally good at. He's not just a lumbering, bulky DM either, he's very technically sound and has great passing, especially long passing from what I've seen of him. Let's take a brief look at his stats. For a 19-year-old, these are mightily impressive and largely show what he's all about. Very solid defensively and comfortable passing the ball out once he's won the ball. He's in the very high 83rd percentile for pass completion, 87th percentile for blocks, and 78th for tackles. For a youngster that's only played about half a season's worth of football, just under 1900 minutes, these stats are very promising and are a great platform for him to spring off of. The one stat here that's slightly surprising to me is how low his successful take-ons are, because from what I've watched, he's a very powerful runner with the ball, and it's hard to get off the ball once he's on it, though I'm not sure that last part is really included in this stat admittedly. One thing that's great about him is that despite him being a defensive midfielder, he doesn't just sit, he can get up the pitch if needs be, which means that he can play as a lone six, or in a midfield pivot, which is a great option for us to have if we want to play him next season. The general consensus is that he's likely to go out on loan, but he's being assessed by Pochettino at Cobham at the moment, and we'll have to see if Poch decides he wants to keep him or not. As I mentioned earlier, with his height and build, he's the only player at the club with that profile, and there's a chance that Poch sees this and decides that he might give him a chance to become his next Victor Wanyama style player in the midfield. Finally, before the end of the video, it's time for the comments of the day. I got a lot of responses last time out, as is always the case, so here are just a couple of the comments from the last question of the day. Thank you guys so much for the continued support, you guys are the best. But now for today's question of the day, who are you most excited about out of these 4 players and why? But that was just my deep dive for Chelsea's new signings. Thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on these players in the comment section down below, and if you'd be so kind, subscribe to the channel and leave a video a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss a video from me, or check out some of the other videos on the channel on screen right now. I've been Mono from Mono CFC, and remember, in the rain or in the dry, keep that blue flag flying high. Come on, you Blues.